10 a.m. local time. That would be 4 hours ago. But we're not sure where he went, and he hasn't come back yet. And about an hour and a half later, North Korea's protocol chief Kim Chang-sun and Park Chol, vice chairman of the Korean Asia Pacific Peace Committee, were seen leaving the state guest house. They came back about an hour later, but we don't know where they went either. Now, North Korea's top negotiator Kim Hyok-chol is believed to be in the state guest house. The officials had also skipped yesterday's morning session and only met in the afternoon, so there's a possibility that the talks could resume sometime later. Meanwhile, with just days left until the summit, the officials are expected to have started drawing up the Hanoi joint declaration that will be released after the summit. They have been meeting every day since last Thursday, but for shorter and shorter times, from over 7 hours on Friday to just 2.5 hours on Sunday. So we are guessing that they are headed in the same direction and narrowing their differences. The main points of contention are understood to include Pyongyang's dismantlement of its nuclear facility at Yongbyon, a declaration to end the Korean War, and allowing inter-Korean economic exchanges. Back to you, Devin.
All right, thanks for that, Jiwon. We'll be checking in with you again later. And now over to our Park Hee-jun, who's at the Hanoi Opera House, a venue that might be used for the two leaders' summit or their dinner banquet. So, Hee-jun, we're hearing that Kim Jongun is heading south on his armored train. Tell us more about his route to Vietnam.
Right, Devin. As you said, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is on his way to the Vietnamese capital for his second meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, he began his journey on Saturday from Pyongyang, and he's expected to be about halfway here. His train is set to have stopped by at the Chinese border of Changsha this afternoon. Kim is expected to get off the train once he crosses the border into Vietnam. He'll get off at Dongdang Station in the city of Lang Son and then take a car for the rest of his journey. Now, Dongdang Station is bustling with preparations for his arrival. Government officials are overseeing the renovation of the station, and workers are busy tidying up the exterior. Security has also been evidently tightened, with every corner of the city being patrolled by police officers. And even on the way to Langsan district yesterday, we saw many using bomb detectors. I was able to speak to one of the officials there who confirmed that Kim is expected to arrive Tuesday. Take a listen.
We heard that the North Korean leader will use the station for the North Korea-US summits. We were told to get the station into the best condition. We don't know the exact time, but we're expecting him on the 26th.
Now, President Trump, on the other hand, is going to set off for Hanoi Monday morning, Washington time, and then he will arrive in the city around Tuesday afternoon.
Well, now, once he gets into Vietnam, Kim Jong-un will have some time on his way to Hanoi to visit a few key places. What do we know on that front?
Well, unfortunately, as of now, we don't know anything for sure, but we do have some ideas. One possible location is Halong Bay, a very popular tourist spot in Vietnam. Kim is well known for his interest in the tourism industry, and Halong Bay is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that attracts 1 million tourists a year. His grandfather Kim Il-sung also paid a visit there back in 1964. And because he is also greatly devoted to the economic development of North Korea, another likely choice would be Pangin Province, where there's a Samsung Electronics factory that makes smartphones. And North Korea's Kim Chang-sun, who's in charge of protocol, also reportedly toured the area. And it's actually considered a symbol of Vietnam's Doi Moi policy, the country's economic reforms in the 1980s. There's also speculation as well that he could visit Haiphong. The port city is home to some South Korean companies, including LG Electronics and also Vietnam's first automobile brand, VinFast. So it's very likely that Kim Jong-un is going to visit at least one of these spots before he sets foot in Hanoi on Tuesday. Devin?
All right, got it. Thanks for that, Hee-jun, and thank you, Lee Ji-won, both of our reporters live down there in Hanoi. Now, here in Seoul, South Korean President Moon Jae-in has weighed in on the Vietnam summit. Speaking to his top aides during a weekly meeting today, President Moon said he hopes the summit will be successful. And he reminded people once again that Koreans are the masters of their own fate. Have a listen.
역사의 변방이 아닌 중심에 서서 전쟁과 대립에서 평화와 공존으로 진영과 이념에서 경제와 번영으로 나아가는 신한반도 체제를 주도적으로 준비하겠습니다.
Earlier, the president's spokesperson said North Korea and the U.S. this week could strike a deal on declaring an end to the Korean War. The leaders of South Korea and the U.S. have promised to keep in close touch on the summit's outcome. In other news, there have been worrying signs lately in the South Korean economy. The latest of those is data suggesting worsening conditions for small and medium-sized businesses. According to the Korea Small Business Institute, the Small Business Health Index last month was 75.2, down more than 5 points from the month before. The index measures how companies feel about the overall economy and their business operating conditions. A reading below 100 means there are more pessimists than optimists. That's 2 months in a row it's fallen. As for the reasons, the Institute pointed to low domestic demand and higher wages. The trade war between the world's two superpowers might be softening a little bit after the two sides, according to President Trump, made some substantial progress during their trade talks. Kim Hae-sung reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted on Sunday that he would extend the March 1st deadline that would see an increase in tariffs on Chinese imports, citing substantial progress in recent trade talks.
Great cooperation. We have great cooperation both ways with China, and a lot of good things are happening.
He has made positive comments over the third round of U.S.-China high-level talks that took place in Washington. The talks ran from Thursday to Sunday after being extended for an extra 2 days and covered intellectual property protection, technology transfers, currency, and other issues. Without a delay to the March 1st deadline, the 90-day trade truce agreed upon by President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping in December on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina would have come to an end, and import duties on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods would have jumped from 10% to 25%. The delay is likely to calm volatile financial markets. China also expressed optimism over the trade talks. China's Xinhua news agency said substantial progress was made on specific issues at the latest round of trade talks. In his Sunday tweet, President Trump also said he looks forward to a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida next month to conclude a trade agreement, assuming both sides make additional progress. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
So where is North Korean leader Kim Jongun now? We're hearing that he's about halfway through a grueling 60-hour-long train ride to Hanoi, currently crossing eastern China. And our Oh Jung-hee has more on who's traveling with Kim and why he chose to take the train instead of flying there.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un exchanged greetings with senior regime officials before boarding his heavily fortified train. Pyongyang state media revealed footage of Kim leaving for Vietnam on Sunday afternoon. Heading to Hanoi with Kim Jong-un are 8 of the regime's key officials, including Kim Yong-chol and Choi Sun-hee, who've been deeply involved in the nuclear negotiations with the U.S. Kim Jong-un's sister and close aide, Kim Yo-jong, and the North's foreign minister, Lee Yong-ho, are also taking the trip to Vietnam. Noteworthy additions to the delegation are Kim Pyeong-hae and Oh Soo-yong, who are respectively in charge of personnel management and industrial affairs. Oh is known as the North's core economy figure, being the regime's former minister of electronics and vice minister of metals and machine building. Kim Jong-un's wife, Lee Seol-ju, is not part of the entourage, implying that First Lady diplomacy won't happen at the summit. Traveling from Pyongyang to Hanoi by train is a tough journey for Kim Jong-un, as it takes about 60 hours. Hanoi is thousands of kilometers away from Pyongyang, but it is technically close enough for Kim's personal jet Chanmae-1 to fly to. But it seems Kim decided to take the train for safety reasons.
While the regime has used the Chanmae-1 several times, its safety is not guaranteed because it's old and small. North Korea can't borrow a Chinese plane again because of their national pride.
Some watchers point out that Kim Jong-un is trying to follow in his grandfather's footsteps. The regime's founder, Kim Il-sung, took a train when he visited Vietnam in 1958.
And besides these reasons, watchers say Kim Jong-un can draw global attention to his journey to Hanoi and add dramatic effect to his diplomacy with the United States. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
And for more, we have Professor Kim Yon-ok from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy joining us in the studio today. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So as we heard in the previous report, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has opted for a special train for his visit to Vietnam. Now, there was speculation that he could use the state jet, the Chanme-1. Now, it's expected to take over 2 days to get to Vietnam. Why do you think he decided to choose this mode of transport?
I think there will have been a lot of consideration of many factors and many elements. First, I think he is kind of mimicking his grandfather, Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung visited Vietnam twice, and it was all by railroad in trip. So by doing that, I think he can, give some good impression to the North Korean people, give the image of his grandfather Kim Il-sung to the people of North Korea. Second reason, I think, would be that he has to think about the safety of himself. Taking an airplane. I mean, North Korea and Pyongyang to Vietnam, Hanoi, it's not a long trip, but, I think it would not be safe trip by Chanme-1, which is the, Kim Jong-un's, own airjet. So I think he'd rather choose a train trip rather than airplane. Another reason I think is that he would like to have more, concentrated, preparation for his meeting in the train. His own train has a lot of facilities, very advanced communication facilities, meeting room, his own bedroom, and also it's very much solid vis-a-vis other outside attack. Can also, block the outside attack by small side rocket. So I think it's very safe compared to the Chanme-1. Another fourth reason I think would be that by taking train, he might visit some other places both in China. In China, because in case of Vietnam, he might be traveling by car. So I think he might visit some places, economically developed places, and also on his way back to Pyongyang, he might think of visiting Beijing for another bilateral meeting with Xi Jinping.
So various reasons there. North Korea state media on Sunday reported on Kim Jong-un's journey to Vietnam after staying mum on the upcoming summit for a couple of weeks. If we look back to the first summit in June last year in Singapore, North Korea reported related news after Kim had arrived in Singapore. Why do you think the regime broke the news this time relatively early?
Yes, even the Rodong newspaper, published an article column about some of the atmosphere inside North Korea about the departure of Kim Jong-un to Vietnam. North Korean people are very much emotionally uprisen by his departure. All the kind of things, as you mentioned, the news has come out before he, depart Pyongyang to Vietnam, which is very new. So I think this kind of process is, that he wants to make himself a leader of normal state. In the Singapore case, when he arrived in Singapore, there were news about the bilateral summit meeting, which was also very new because until he comes back to Pyongyang, when he takes a trip abroad, there was no news about the trip inside North Korea at all because the leader was afraid of the vacancy of his power inside North Korea when he was away from North Korea. So I think he's trying to be shown as a leader of normal state, but at the same time, this is a kind of showing of his power consolidation. His power is very safe and solid inside North Korea. He doesn't have to worry about that. So that kind of images would be given by this kinds of media report.
So the state media also released footage of Kim's departure, and we've been able to get a glimpse of the senior officials that are accompanying or that are part of the North's delegation. Now it includes his sister Kim Yo-jong and his top aide Kim Young-chul, who's long been part of the negotiations with the U.S. Were there any people that stood out to you or that we should have our eyes on?
Compared to the Singapore summit meeting, this time, two figures we have to take a look at. First one is Oh Soo-young, who is vice committee chair of the Rodong, the Workers' Party Central Committee, who is in charge of economics. He is now also the Budget Committee chair in the Supreme People's Meeting. So I think, by having him accompanying Kim Jong-un, I think Kim Jong-un was try to take a look at how the Vietnamese model of economic development can be applied to North Korea. When he have a summit meeting with Vietnam leader, and when he take a look at the economic development sites and factory sites, I think his role would be to take a look at and make some roadmap for the North Korean model of economic development, kind of mimicking what happened in Vietnam. Another figure we have to take a look at is Kim Pyeongyang, who is also the vice chairman in the Workers' Party Central Committee. He's in charge of personnel, and I think after the meeting there is some good elections about the Supreme meetings, committee members, which happens in 10th March. So I think Kim Jong-un seems to be ready for that kind of event. After he's back from Vietnam, he has to take care of reorganizing the Supreme People's Meeting representatives. So I think maybe this kind of meeting with Trump and also meeting with Vietnam leader would also shift some of the policy focus inside North Korea.
So much focus has been put on the economy this time. Now, there's been no mention of Kim's wife, Lee Seol-ju, and many had been anticipating the possibility of First Lady diplomacy. Do you think there's a particular reason for her to be left behind this time?
I think these meetings are not just a party meeting. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he has to focus on the negotiation with President Trump, and also he has to get some outcome about the meeting with Vietnamese leader about how North Korean economic development model should be refined. So all these kind of things would be burdensome for Kim Jong-un. I think accompanying Lee Seol-ju will be much more burdensome to Kim Jong-un. I think he would rather focus on the meetings with two leaders, I think.
Now, shifting our focus to Hanoi, working levels have been getting underway for the past few days between North Korean Special Envoy Kim Hyok-chol and his U.S. counterpart Stephen Biegun. Now, footage over the weekend showed Biegun giving a thumbs up to reporters as he was following the negotiations. Do you think the two sides have managed to narrow their differences at this point? Two scenarios.
First, when you look at the agreement after the Singapore summit, there are 4 pillars. 3 pillars out of 4 are the focus. First one is about the relationship. Second is about the permanent peace regime in the Korean Peninsula. And third one is about the denuclearization. Maybe first scenario is that the two sides have not come up with a satisfied outcome out of the working level discussion. So they might rather focus on the relationship issues. For example, and the war declaration between two countries, a liaison office establishment in both countries' capital cities, things like that. Second scenario is that maybe they have come up with some of the results, that is substantial outcome about denuclearization. North Korea have been mentioning that they can give up the shutdown and dismantlement of Yongbyon facilities. But what else would there be? I mean, North Korea might have given up something more, for the sanctions to be lifted by the United States. So I think in that issues and agenda, two sides might have come up with some kinds of agreement. Maybe that's what made Steve Biegun happy.
Now, compared to the Singapore summit, the U.S. also seems to be a little bit more flexible. Even just a day before the June 12th summit, the U.S. said there has to be complete denuclearization on the table, but this time there seems to be more cards on the table. Now, on Sunday, Trump tweeted that the North could become a great economic power should it give up its nuclear weapons. How should we be looking at this?
I think President Trump has been, talking about this on and on before. I mean, if North Korea denuclearizes itself, the U.S. is ready to make North Korea, economically develop. So this is just a talk that is, mentioned as a good incentive for North Korea to bring North Korea into denuclearization. Of course, compared to the Singapore summit, in which the U.S. very much stuck to the idea of CVID. This time, the United States became very flexible. No more talk of CVID, but they talk about FFVD, and also accepted the way of negotiation, North Korean negotiation, step-by-step, simultaneous steps, and also did not really stick to the idea of declaration and verification, which has been rejected by North Korea. The U.S. has been, lowering its red line for negotiation compared to the Singapore summit meeting. But this doesn't mean that U.S. is completely lifting sanctions, even though there's no measures of denuclearization by North Korea. So we'll see how it goes.
Now, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton was also supposed to visit South Korea over the weekend, but his trip was canceled due to focus on the Venezuela crisis. But he is expected to accompany President Trump to Vietnam along with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Now, do you think who is on the U.S. delegation will have significant meaning as well?
I don't think this time there is much difference compared to the Singapore meeting. Pretty much the same people. Pompeo, Secretary Pompeo, Special Representative Steve Biegun, and John Bolton, who is National Security Advisor, and also some of the working level people like Alison Hooker, who is working at the National Security Council, Alex Wong, who is in the State Department, also Lambert, who is also in the State Department, pretty much the same people. But the role of John Bolton has been pretty much degraded, I think. He has been arguing that there should be no talk with North Korea, very skeptical about the talk with North Korea. So I think his position has been pretty much focusing on the Middle East issues rather than North Korea issues recently. But so I think the role he has been taking when there was Singapore summit would be different from this summit meeting, I think.
And before we let you go, so up until now, South Korean President Moon Jae-in has been playing the role of the mediator and facilitating the talks between North Korea and the U.S. Now, last week, he talked to President Trump over the phone, and he said that Seoul is willing to open economic cooperation with North Korea as concessions if it should expedite the denuclearization. Now, do you think this will have an impact on the upcoming summit, and what role do you see the South Korean government playing down the line?
I think the role of South Korean government is becoming more concrete and more active, I think. Designating a specific role the South Korean government can do in the negotiation between North Korea and the United States is such an active way to participate in the meeting as a mediator, I think. What President Moon Jae-in has mentioned was about the active role of South Korean government in expediting denuclearization of North Korea, in a sense that by doing some of the economic cooperation between North Korea and South Korea. So this could be good measures, good concessions to the United States, as the United States has to some kinds of economic concession to North Korea, which is a burden to President Trump. But also at the same time, this could be a pressure to the United States for the sanction lifting when the U.S. is facing North Korea for denuclearization talk.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how those talks go. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.
And that's where we wrap things up for today. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. But in the meantime, stay tuned to Arirang's newscast for all the latest updates. Thank you for watching and goodbye.